Email marketing generates $42 for every dollar spent. Now that's an amazing ROI, but why aren't you seeing that in your brand? Well, I'm going to go through the 10 most effective e-commerce email marketing tactics for 2025 to make sure that you get these great results this year. If you're new to this channel, my name's Andrea and I run a digital marketing agency called Dia Creative. We specialize in retention marketing tactics just like the ones I'm going to show you, and we've often doubled or even tripled sales revenue from platforms like email, SMS, social, and SEO. Here are just some of the results that we saw within 30 days of launching 5 new flows for an e-commerce business. If you're curious to see what we can do for your business, click on the link below. With that said, let's get right into these tactics. Okay, let's get into the 10 most effective e-commerce email marketing tactics in 2025. First one, pop-up. We've been testing a number of different pop-ups in the last year, and some brands don't want to do discounts in their pop-ups and some do. Most people have gotten very well trained to expect that 10% off, 15%, 20% off. So much so that people have gotten wise, and you might notice people are using welcome 10, welcome 15, welcome 20 on your site, even though they're not on your email list, because they're so used to those being the codes that get them an automatic discount. So in their mind, why should they give you their email address when they can just use your code for free? Now, one thing you should know with these pop-ups is that you should have a breakdown between email and SMS. You want to incentivize SMS numbers with a higher value offer typically. Email has been given away for the last 2 decades pretty easily. It is a valued asset to me as a customer, but it's a lower value asset than my cell number so that you can text me. And typically the average person will only subscribe to 5 SMS brands. So if you're not one of their top 5, you're out. You really want to incentivize them to really make it worth their while to give you their SMS versus just their email address. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's dig into this mystery discount and how that worked. So the pop-up before was a typical save a certain amount when you enter your email to get this offer. You can see that we doubled down on the messaging of the offer by saying get $5 off your first order in the button itself. And you can see we had a 2.98% submit rate. Now, on average for decent pop-ups, you'll get between 3 and 7%. So this was really underperforming from where we wanted to be. Instead, we switched it over to this, you've unlocked a mystery discount and are you ready to see what you've got? This is really in that psychological messaging that excites someone to understand, like you're getting into their cortisol levels. They really want to see what their special gift is, what their mystery discount is. And even though there's some small part of their brain that's like, it's probably going to be the 10% and the 15% for my SMS, they're still going to be interested enough because of that messaging and because they really want to see what we have to offer them. And if they're maybe one of those lucky few that'll get a slightly higher value offer, but really everybody's getting the same offer. And then, like I mentioned before, you want to upgrade people's discounts. So they were going to get the 10% if they just did their email, but now they can get the 15% when they upgrade with that higher value asset that they want to share with us, which is their cell phone number. And you can see the difference right here. Here you can see we did 13.18% conversion rate. Now compare that to the 2.98% we did in the first revision. You can see what an impact it made. So if you're running discounts in your pop-ups, this is a great one to test out, to just try it out instead of doing a very blanket expected offer, and give them something that gives them a little bit more enticement and a little bit more gamification to get them involved. Number 2, welcome flow testing. So now that you've got your pop-up optimized, let's make sure your welcome flow actually does its job, which is to educate people about the brand, get them excited to purchase, and make them one of those lifelong customers that we love so much, because that's where all your retention revenue comes from. The test that we ran this past year that we're finding is very effective and you want to bring into 2025 is design versus plain text emails. This is a plain text version of a designed email. So first we designed the welcome flow. It was our standard 3 to 5 email series of welcome flows. If you're curious more about that, we have another video where we'll go into how to structure your welcome flow and what's the typical story you want to be telling throughout your welcome flow. But as you can see, we just took the text from that graphic designed email and just highlighted a couple different areas so we could really grab their attention on where we wanted them to click. So as you can see, the plain text version of this email was the winner across all of our different metrics. So let's start with open rate. Open rate should be the same because essentially we used the same subject line preview text because really we're trying to test design versus text email. That being said, because it was a text only email, we combined the preview text with the subject line. You can see the subject line here is your $5 off is here, and then save money, snack smarter was your preview text. We put those all into the subject line and didn't do a preview text because it's a text only email. That alone shows a 10% difference in our open rate. Then the click rate though is where it's really exciting. This is almost a 3x improvement on click-through rate between between 7% to 18%. And finally, what's most important is your placed order rate. And you can see a significant difference. That's almost a 50% increase between our placed order rates between these two. Now, this is a smaller test. You'll see that there was only about 500 deliveries. We tend to run smaller, but at least the 500 is where I'd keep at your minimum when you're running these tests, because that gives you just enough to have a visual without having to waste too many people in your email list through the whole test. 500 gets you enough of a visibility to see like, yes, this is working, no, it isn't, and you can move on to other tests. Because we believe so strongly in running as many tests as possible across brands and across industries, we found that this is the best method moving forward. So let's get into 3, discount code URLs for a seamless checkout. Now, this is a simple one that a lot of people miss, but if you're on Shopify, you should be putting in the discount code in your URL. So as an example, if your discount code is welcome10, which I already told you not to be using because everybody is using it, you want to have your URL on all of your CTAs, all of your buttons throughout the email, have that welcome code incorporated. Now, Shopify does it super simple. All you have to do is put in your URL, write discount, put in your code, and then do your redirect to whatever landing page you want them to go to. This is really good even for product-specific discount codes, etc. With BigCommerce, I think that there's a plugin you need to do. With WordPress, there's definitely a plugin that will do this for you. You should be able to get around this on most e-commerce platforms, but this has made such a difference with conversion rates. We've seen revenue jump up 30% just from making this one little tweak. Remember, you always want to minimize the amount of clicks from first access, first contact, first visualization of your brand to actual purchase. And the best way to do this is that from this link, you take me exactly to what you want me to purchase. The discount code is already baked in. I can take it to checkout. I see it's already there. I don't have to think about it. And then I can just purchase and run out. That's like 2 to 3 clicks max versus having to jump back to my email, jump around the site, try and figure out where that code was, entering it in wrong, and then having to fix it. Let's remove all friction and make it super easy for people to buy. Retargeting non-openers in your welcome flow. Now, your welcome flow is that first touch, that first brand experience. It's the place where you romance new visitors, really get them to understand who you are and why they want to buy from you, why they should trust you with their shopping experience or whatever it is you're trying to solve. For all you brands out there that want to be really aggressive in 2025, this is the test you should be paying attention to. Remember, people signed up for your welcome flow because they were interested enough to give you their email address when they came to your site. They will give you their email address so that they can make sure that they will have that relationship with you, that you are going to be sending them emails. And so when they get busy with life, they'll come back to your brand and they'll know like, don't worry, I gave them my email address. They will email me and I will remember them later when I'm ready to shop. That being said, a lot of times they just spent time on your site. They just got to know your brand. So when you've hit them with that first welcome flow email, you see a 67% open rate, which is a great open rate, first off, but it is also somewhat expected because I just signed up to get my offer, my mystery code, or my dollar value off, or if you're not doing that, to just really understand who your brand is. If they opened this email, then we don't hit them again until the next day because you don't want to be so aggressive that you're hitting them and they're like, whoa, this is too much. We're still early in the dating phase. Like, let's not blow up my phone just yet. But that being said, if they didn't open this, it probably got lost in their inbox. They were interested enough. This is your first date. They really are interested in learning more about you. So we found by sending a second email 2 hours later only to non-openers, that this one you see a 40% open rate. So more people are clicking over here. And here's one more little tip. When you're finding something works on certain flows, when you think through the buyer journey and you think through the logic of the customer, you can use the same tactic on other flows. We've done a lot of that across a lot of our brands. 5, email deliverability benchmarks. 2024 was the year of email deliverability issues. All of the major ESPs, Google, Yahoo, AOL, Microsoft, all changed their deliverability rules and regulations. They're getting a lot more strict. It's so bad that if you've been sending newsletters from your primary domain, which you should be doing if you're a legit brand, we've seen spam reports so bad that like the accountant can't get their emails out now because everything is going to spam. So this is super, super, super important in 2025. It's actually only going to get worse as AI improves the algorithms within email inboxes to ensure that only the right emails get to their customers. Because at the end of the day, they want to be the best ESP, so they will make sure that you have the best email experience, which means if you're being spammy, that's a bad experience, and they're going to make sure you get blocked. Keep focusing on your deliverability in 2025. So what are the benchmarks you should be sticking to? You definitely want an open rate above 33%, a click rate above 1.2%, bounce rate above 1%, unsubscribe rate 0.3%, and spam complaint rate 0.01%. So you want to keep under these bottom three and above these top two. So let's go into how you do that. First and foremost, keeping your open rate above 33%. We recommend doing some strategic A to B tests, testing out subject line, preview text, the sender's name. We've had some success in swapping from the brand to the founder's name with certain brands where the founder is a key component in that customer journey and customer conversation. We've already mentioned the plain text emails. And the other thing is send times. Now, you might have this happen. I've seen this a lot with beauty brands in the last year, where they've been sending at like 4 o'clock in the morning. So I don't know if, they're Iterable or Braze or Klaviyo or whatever is recommending that time, but you'll wake up in the morning and you'll get hit with like 10 to 15 emails. And honestly, like, as a customer, I archive them all and I move on. So for one of our beauty brands, we actually found significantly better conversion rates, which is not, this is open rate, but conversion rates at 4 p.m. Eastern. 4 p.m. Eastern seemed to be a great opportunity where everyone's already cleaned out their inbox for the day. And we come in this nice little surprise with our offer or our story or our science or our BNAs or our reviews. And that's been a nice little burst on sales. So anyway, open rate, you want to always pay attention to these things. One of the biggest issues we've had with some of our newest clients is having to fix their email deliverability. So we lean in on open rate, click rate. Secondarily, we actually lean more on bounce rate, unsubscribe, and spam rate first and foremost. And there's a whole plan for how you can fix your deliverability within 30 days, and we'll have a separate video on that. Next, let's go into click rate. So you want your click rate to be above a 1.2%. Now, click rate means that when they're looking at your email, they click on it and they click out and they click away. One thing that we found optimizing your email design is absolutely critical, especially having a button or CTA button above the fold. And I know that like emails aren't really a fold, but you know what I mean? In that top quadrant that you instantly see when you open an email, you need to have something that tells me to click. Especially with designed emails, they end up looking very editorial, very magazine quality, which doesn't instinctively tell you to click. So I recommend absolutely in that first quadrant, having something that, it doesn't have to be a button. It doesn't have to be terribly like blatant, but I do think you need something that says you should click here to do this. You should click here to read more. You should click here to get whatever code or offer you have. The next thing is making sure your CTA buttons are clever and interesting and make sense with what you are asking people to do. Depending on the brand, lots of copy work really well, or very, very little copy and more visuals work really well. You have to understand who your target market is and how they want to interact with the email, what information they're looking for. If you have an education heavy product and such that people don't know to buy your product because they don't really understand it, you need to do a lot of education in email. Break up that text so it's a little bit easier to digest. People are lazy, people are bored, they skim and scan more than they actually read. But if there's really interesting story to tell, so for example, with a travel company we worked with, we got to tell a whole story in each email about each of their destinations. And that we've had like a 95 to 98% read score as we were running these through HubSpot, which is a very cool little metric that you can add. We were seeing that actually worked really well for them because it was an older demographic and they really wanted to read the story. They wanted to experience what it would be like to go to Denmark or wherever and how that looked. Finally, if you are leaning a little bit more into product placement, where you place your products on the email is critical to ensuring that people will click on them. Like I said before, if your product is really easy to understand, very visual, I instantly know that I want it, you can actually crowd more products into that email because then it just feels like a shopping grid or a collections page on Shopify that happens to be in an email. If your product needs social proof or benefits or explanation, then I would really break it out. I would even make sure that you have certain emails dedicated to each product. Putting the product higher up the email, we found, does improve click-through rate. So now let's get into your bounce rate. Now your bounce rate has to be under 1%. And unfortunately, this means your soft bounce rate and your hard bounce rate. The difference, a hard bounce rate is any email that's not real. Somebody put in a fake email, it's going to hard bounce. It doesn't exist. There's nowhere for it to go. Your soft bounce happens for a number of different reasons. The bandwidth of emails going to the ESP, that person's inbox being too full, different other spam, AI algorithms they have running in the background. We've had emails that have soft bounced 3 or 4 times and then come back and delivered successfully. So it's something to kind of keep an eye on. If you're seeing your bounce rate is getting high, shift to targeting only your engaged profiles. Exclude any unengaged profiles. So anyone that hasn't opened an email, visited the site, spent any real time there, don't email to them if you're seeing your bounce rates getting too high, because they're not interested in your email and it's not really going to help you. But if you focus the people that are excited for your email, the people that keep their inbox clean, that'll really help keep your bounce rate where you need to do, where it needs to be. Now, if you have 1 or 2 emails that go over on your bounce rate, it's not a big deal. Just make sure you're compensating for that in the next few emails you're sending. Excluding anyone that's bounced at least twice, even if it's soft bounce, is a good idea, especially when your bounce rate is starting to creep a little too high. And finally, create a sunset flow. Now, this is a special type of flow that you will send to anyone that has not engaged on your site 90 days or 180 days. And I'll walk you through this a little bit later on in our other tips. This is just a very nice, polite way of just saying, hey, are you still interested in hearing from us? You gave us your email address. You were clearly interested at some point. If you are, let us know so that we can keep you on the list. If you're not, no hard feelings, but then remove them from your list and move on to get new people that are interested in your brand. Finally, your unsubscribe rate and your spam rate. Your unsubscribe rate should be below 0.3%. They understand that people will be unsubscribing, but the majority of ESPs assume that people are unsubscribing because they don't like your content or they think you're spamming them or sending them too much. So they still see an unsubscribe as a negative. There's a couple different ways to manage this. Absolutely always have a clearly visible unsubscribe link. What we found some coaches do, especially like Brendan Burchard, has a small paragraph under his unsubscribe that's like, oh, we'll be so sad to lose you and you'll be missing out on all these opportunities, and kind of leaning into that guilt psychology to keep people from unsubscribing. E-commerce brands, I haven't seen too many that do that in particular. Just keep your unsubscribe link there. I think you can put a single sentence that just says, hey, you're going to be missing out on knowing about our launches before anybody else, or we have some really cool things coming up. Make sure you only unsubscribe if you really don't want to hear from us. Another option is this manage preferences link alongside unsubscribe. Because sometimes I don't really want to unsubscribe. I just don't want to hear from you every day or every 3 days or whatever you're sending. Or I'm only interested in your bath products and not your makeup products or whatever it is. So like giving me a chance to manage what I want to see is a great way to keep me, not keep me from unsubscribing, but giving me more of the personalization and the interesting content that I'm really looking for. Next, absolutely always use proper segmentation. So we're sending emails to a relevant audience to reduce email fatigue. Talk to your customers. I mean, you have your basic segments about openers, non-openers, past purchasers by category, by collection, by product. But you also have your VIPs. Overall, if you're that person, how do you want to interact with this brand? And make sure that you're segmenting so that they get the particular content that they're looking for when they're looking for it. And finally, optimize frequency and timing. Same thing, just watch out for fatigue. Make sure you're not sending too often to too many people. And this is where you could be sending 1 to 5 emails a day, but individual customers might only get a handful a week because of their specifications, their preferences, and their segmentation. And here I've put 2 examples of what you might be facing. So this is a Klaviyo deliverability score as an example, and you can see the bounce rate got a little high. This is where you want to be. So remember, for this type of bounce rate, what we should do is target the engaged profiles, limit the people we're sending with so we have less of bounce rate, and clean your lists. Always clean. Get rid of anything that we should not be sending to. Just get them out of there. Let's send to the people that want to hear from us. Here's another example. You might be seeing a low click rate. This is a really low click rate. And you really want to be closer to that greater than 1.2%. For this click rate, what I'd recommend is optimizing the design or the copy, really calling out where they should be clicking, why they should be clicking, what you want them to be doing. And that can really help grow this particular number. As you can see, everything else, just take things one step at a time, and you could keep optimizing each of these individual metrics that are so important. 6, Exclusions and segmentation for better deliverability. I know I'm talking about deliverability a lot, but this is a big one. Let's talk about the specific exclusions. So when we're talking about that segmentation, we want to exclude unengaged profiles. And I mentioned that earlier. And you want to exclude any problematic emails, which might be something you've forgotten to do. So those are addresses containing like test, spam, no reply, the random smattering of letters, like anything you can find that has any sort of like no my email or no email. I think we got a bunch of those once when people were trying to sign up with fake emails. Just be careful, just get them out. So that way it doesn't affect your bounce rate. Now, how do we define who is unengaged, who has never engaged? So we break it down like this. So this is our standard unengaged segment. They've opened it 0 times ever. They've never opened an email. They've never clicked on email, obviously, because they've never opened it, but they have received at least 10 emails. So they've had at least 10 chances to open an email and they still haven't done it. They don't want to be here. But that's only part of the unengaged that you want to focus on. The second part of unengaged is maybe have they engaged on your site at all? Not just your email, because they might just not be an email person, especially younger generations tend to not be email, but they love your site and they're shopping and they're interested. They're engaged. You should still be communicating with them. Maybe you should be switching more to like SMS or app pushes or some other form of communication, DMs, and not email. That's another story. But you should keep these people on email just in case they are interested at some point in interacting. So the second half of this unengaged segment is all has to do with the website. Now, these are analytics that should be pulled into your email marketing platform. So if you're using an Iterable, a Braze, a Klaviyo, a Salesforce, a HubSpot, you should be able to pull in these depending on what e-commerce platform you work, like Shopify, BigCommerce, Magento, etc. So they've placed an order 0 times, added to cart 0 times, viewed product 0 times, viewed collection 0 times, and has never gone to checkout. So they really have never had any real intent to purchase anything from your site. Let's just stop talking to them. They're not really a customer anyway. You're not losing anything. So let's just move on to people that actually want to talk to you and growing your list through them. At least 60% of brands still don't have some of the basic money-making flows you absolutely need to have. So let's get into those. With number 7, must have money-making flows. Your welcome flow converts your leads to customers. And then we have our set of abandons. Now your basic set of abandons would be your abandoned checkout, your abandoned cart, and your browse abandonment. If you want to get more aggressive, people will also do a viewed collection flow, which is another form of abandonment. Klaviyo connects into Shopify, and they just recently had an update where they will automatically now pull in that add to cart event, which we used to have to add manually, which is really nice. But this is really a very nice basic. Now, each one has its own logic, which is very important. So think through your buyer journey. When you're looking at your browse abandonment, this is somebody that's just been browsing your site. Don't be very aggressive. They're just checking you out. So these should be more informational emails in that abandonment versus your checkout where they've gotten all the way to the end and something stopped them. Typically, we've seen the biggest culprit is your shipping costs are too high. So if you can offer them a discount, this is a great place to do that. If you can't, really explaining the value of what they're going to get and why it's worth it, and that they shouldn't want to wait too much longer to get those results that they're looking for, or that, comfier bed, or, better food, or whatever. Heading into number 8, we're going to lean into additional flows, specifically additional post-purchase flows you should absolutely have in 2025. You need to have a thank you flow, and you need to separate this out by paths for new versus repeat buyers. Now, when you're thinking through your typical e-commerce platform like Shopify, they will have an order confirmation. If you're on Shopify Plus, they can also do a shipping confirmation and shipping tracking through like ShipStation or whatever you're using. But this is more of a designed post-purchase thank you flow that should come from your email marketing platform. So think through, if somebody's purchasing for the first time, what does it mean to you that they're giving you a shot? What do they need to know to get the best possible experience out of your product? Is there a special way to wash it and care for it? Is there a special way that you should be prepping to use it? Is there certain people that it works better for versus others? Really kind of thinking through that educational process in that thank you flow. That being said, if it's a repeat buyer, you don't want to hit them with that same educational path again. They're already a fan of your brand. But what you can do is tell them a little bit more about your VIP experiences, your loyalty experiences. You can encourage them to leave reviews so that they can share with other people. You can also encourage them to share with their friends and family, which is the best form of marketing, which is word of mouth. Your win back flow, this is for anyone that purchased from you and then has a gap. Now that gap will differ based on your brand. We have certain beauty products, as an example, that are 60 days. We have pet food products that are 90-day supply. So you don't want to hit them with a win-back flow if you're only on day like 95. Then you probably want to hit them with like a replenishment flow to make sure in like day 80 that they're ready to order and that they'll continue to receive the product so that they don't have a lapse. A win-back flow is for someone where you're pretty sure they've forgotten about you, but they loved you enough to try you. Especially you can do custom win-back flows for someone that's purchased once versus somebody that's purchased multiple times and then dropped off because maybe life got busy, maybe their situation changed, maybe they think they found a new competitor that they like better. So use this win-back flow to re-engage with them, remind them what they loved about you in the first place and anything new and exciting that's been happening since the last time they potentially shopped with you. Now, I know this is a flow. It's not something you're going to be updating all the time, but quarterly updates to win-back flow, specifically with anything new and innovative or any shifts in the brand, is super helpful to make sure that you are engaging with the potential win-back audience and getting the best possible results. Finally, your VIP flow. This can be used with a loyalty program. There are a number of different loyalty programs you can sign up for where you're getting points. Points I've seen are successful and unsuccessful depending on the industry. They've kind of been overused in the beauty space. So what we've seen instead is rewarding high spending with a VIP experience where you don't necessarily need points and you're not trying to rack anything up, but you are exchanging your dollars for VIP experiences. We've seen with some loyalty programs, you can also trade in actual points for donations or supporting favorite causes that are related to the brand. Overall, a VIP flow is just supposed to make your VIPs feel special. Whether or not you have a loyalty program in place, you can still create a really nice flow that just says thank you and offers them something that is unique, that makes them feel special and valued in your business. Number 9, campaign variety. Add some plain text emails in. In the e-commerce space, we see most brands are relying on design emails, which makes sense because it's a visual medium. It feels very kind of social media-y or TV-ish. And so it's really engaging. But breaking up those patterns, breaking up those expectations, plain text feels a little bit more personal, and you can do emails from the founder or from customer support or from someone special like an influencer talking specifically to your audience. I wouldn't use them too much because I think a lot of the e-commerce experience is still expected to be a very shoppable experience, and having those visuals of feeling like you're already on the website when you're on an email or engaging in some of those like high beauty, high fashion, high quality experiences with the brand in that visual of email is important. So what we found as we've been testing is like, if you're sending about 4 to 5 campaigns weekly, 1 campaign should be plain text. Now remember, you are segmenting these down and personalizing it. So make sure that each customer in each of those segmented groups gets a variety of heavy design versus plain text emails. Number 10. This is a unique version of a review flow request that we've used to boost Trustpilot and Google reviews. Now, if you have reviews on your site, you should absolutely be collecting those reviews. Your Yotpos, your Okendos, your Smile.ios, they all have their own flows that I would recommend using that optimize for getting reviews specifically to the products that they've purchased. I know Yotpo, for example, their email lets you leave a review right in the email. Okendo has some pretty sophisticated flows as well, and they do a great job there. If you're interested in trying out any of these platforms that I've been talking about, I'll make sure to have links below, and if they have any special offers, I'll include those as well. This particular review flow that we developed this past year is targeting Trustpilot and Google My Business reviews. Now, why do we want to do this? Trustpilot and Google are independent third parties. They don't typically live on your site, and in some ways that gives them a lot more trust. People are getting more and more skeptical of reviews. So much so that the FEC announced back in October that they are going to actively be pursuing any brands that have fake or false reviews on their site, or are using fake UGC or fake imagery for before and afters. So this is super important because with the growth of AI, I'm sure this is happening a lot more, but they definitely do not want to see that coming out, especially in the review space where things need to be trusted. This is why it does help to have this independent third party list your company name and list those actual reviews. So how can you get reviews to Trustpilot or Google Reviews? This is the flow you want to use. So what you're going to do is create a post-purchase flow targeting customers who purchased 30 days ago. Make sure you've given them enough time to enjoy the product, experience the product. Quick tip: never ask for reviews too early in the process, because one of the worst things you can get is a 5-star review where someone's like, I haven't even opened the box and you're asking me for a review. I have seen a little bit more of that coming through. I think that's people combating the being annoyed by getting review requests, is they're leaving 5-star reviews, but it's actually a complaint. So that's been a fun little challenge to deal with this past year. But it does tell you, hey, watch out. It means you're sending your reviews too soon. So it's one of the first things we had to change with 2 of our brands this past year. As I was seeing the reviews coming in, I was like, I think you're asking too early. We need to push this back to 45 days. So anyway, typically you do 30 days. You'd send an email for a 30-second product feedback. You're looking for feedback. You're not necessarily saying that it's a review just yet. You're just looking for feedback. So building this via Typeform gives you a certain level of control about how this is going to get directed. And it makes it a very seamless, integrated experience, which is really nice. We're going to create conditional triggers so that if you have a 4 or 5-star rating, we instantly redirect users to leave a review on Trustpilot or Google Reviews. Just pick one and make sure that link takes them exactly to where they need to leave a review. Not to your brand page, not to their homepage, but exactly where they need to leave a review. So that's a very seamless experience. Remember, reduce the number of clicks as much as possible. Then you have 3 or less stars. And here instead, we're going to be asking follow-up questions to better understand the issue, request their email for resolution, or direct them directly to customer support, depending on how you have your customer support set up. This is how that flow looks. So instantly we'll ask for their name. We'll ask, how did you rate us? And then if it was below 3 stars, we take them up here. It's like, oh, we call this, that's not what we expected. Please share your email address and we'll get in touch, or change this over to go to customer service. If they rated 4 or 5 stars, you go send them immediately to Trustpilot. And this is how you can see that logic a little bit better. So how would you rate us? If it's lower than 3, then they need to go to this next step in the flow. If it's other cases, which basically means 4 or 5, you need to go to this URL. And one more bonus tip, which I've kind of hinted about in this overall list, is using the discount code in the CTAs, or buttons, as a lot of people call them. So anytime you're doing that call to action, your CTA, include the discount code. So if you go back to when we were showing you that example, that plain text example, you'll notice all of the email links were showing click here to activate $5 off. We put it right here rather than saying click here or shop now or get my discount. Put exactly what they're going to get. Incentivize them to click and tell them, why should I click? It's very clear here. That increased our click rate approximately 145%. And you can see that from the example. Make sure you're putting in the CTA exactly what you want the call to action to be. What are they looking for? What do you want to give them? Why should they click? Just make it very clear. Don't play coy. And that alone increased our click rate from 7% to the 18% that we showed before. So if you're an e-commerce brand looking to scale to 8 figures and beyond, and you want me and my team to help you get there with strategic retention marketing strategies, contact me using the link below. And if for any reason you're not quite ready for that, check out this video where I get deeper into those email conversion rules I've been talking about. Catch you there.